world, marketing and sales can be so predatory. And there are so many people out there taking advantage and giving business in general a bad name. And there's lots of people who have been taken advantage of, people who just feel crappy and grow. People who have, my clients have amazing businesses and they are changing the world. They truly are. And yet they often are getting broken down by how gruesome and difficult and slimy and uncomfortable it is to market themselves. And so awkward marketing is this little shining light in the middle of that, saying it doesn't have to be awful. Yes, let's all laugh at it. And here are some ways that you can market your business that don't make you feel crappy about yourself, that don't make you feel like you're taking advantage of people, that aren't manipulative, that aren't sleazy. So, I mean, if I'm getting real about it, that really is my why in terms of why I do the show. But at the end of the day, Trey, I got to put food on the table. And that is, the thing that makes me get up in the morning and go to work instead of grabbing a beer,
You're currently listening to one of the funniest entrepreneurs that I know. Her name is Rachael Kay Albers, and she's the creative director of RKA Inc., a creative studio based just outside of Chicago. And Rachael has helped hundreds, if not millions, of thought leaders and visionary entrepreneurs all over the world stand out online without having to sell their soul to the devil or play that manipulation game that everybody hates. And when she's not creating unforgettable brands for her clients, Rachael hosts Awkward Marketing, which is a business comedy show, which is funny as I don't know what. She blends fun-sized small business advice with storytelling and sketch comedy. So think of it as a one-woman SNL of biz TV. I love my conversation with RKA because it is genuine. It's very honest, and she gives some great strategies on how to market your brand. It's a great conversation. I'm excited about it. So let's get this thing started, guys. Let's get after it. This is Your Superior Self, episode 75, Awkward Marketing with creative director Rachael Kay Albers. In his new book, Realization, Paul Selig channels this text. Now, when an obstacle presents itself on your path, you have an opportunity to comprehend it. See where you have chosen it or why you have it, and then dismantle it. But you dismantle the structure by realizing what it has been. Simply an idea that you have gone into an agreement to. You have asserted its meaning and agreed with the collective that it's what you should have or be or do. The definitions you hold about what success is must be seen by you for what they are. Inherited ideals, emblems, directives that were chosen by others that you ascribe meaning to. What you give meaning to, you empower, you justify, and then you create in the coordinates to. What it means to be a man or a woman becomes a directive that should be fulfilled through the agendas that you perceive or have claimed to be meaningful. And what I want to talk about a little bit is the success part. This is a tough subject, really. It is. I mean, this book has been influential in my life. But what I really like about this excerpt is the success part and how success, the definition of it, our own definition of success has been influenced by others. And you're like, what are you talking about? Well, if you think about the American dream, right? That story or that image, whatever that pops up in your mind when you hear the words American dream, that has been influenced on you by someone else. I mean, for my story, it was my family's definition of success. I followed my father's footsteps because my family already had this definition of success. And it was to do this X, Y, and Z. And I was nervous when I got out of college or when I quit college because I didn't know what success was for me. I got I wouldn't say excited. I got nervous, like that I wasn't going to find that. And I hurried myself to try obtain success, to get that approval from my family because I was worried that I didn't want to be the old guy without a job. And I didn't want to be that weirdo loser who was still living at home and not really finding his way. So I knew that success was defined by this. I knew that, this is what my family interpreted success to be. So I followed in my father's footsteps and I obtained I guess by their definition, I obtain their level of success. I am successful by their definition. But what you need to really take stock of is, what is your definition of success? What is that definition? And I still haven't really figured that out for myself. I mean, it's a tough question. It's really mind racking to think about what success is to you. It's not an easy question. I mean, if I'm to be honest, I think you have to take in account every aspect of your life and measure that and see, what areas in your life that you can improve in and what areas that you're strong in, and try to make everything balanced. I think that's what really success is, and that's just my interpretation. But success could be something different to you. What I wanted to point out to you guys and really leave you food for thought is the idea that success has always been influenced on us by other people, and that it is time to really take in account like our own ideas and our own feelings and our own, get to know who you are. And yeah, I know it's not an easy subject. I know it's tough. I mean, I can barely talk about it, but it's very interesting to me. Going a little deep to start out the conversation today, or the episode. To reel us back in, let me introduce today's guest. Her name is Rachael Kay Albers. She is the creative director for RKA Inc. She is the one-woman SNL of Biz TV. And after 10 years of living, traveling, and coding in Australia, Germany, Guatemala, Kenya, and Mexico, today she's based outside of Chicago with her husband and daughter. I am excited to be able to present to you this conversation. It's really laid back and cool and funny, and she gives some really great strategies for marketing. So without further ado, here is Rachael Kay Albers. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Your Superior Self. I'm excited tonight because I have Rachael Kay Albers on the show. She is hilarious, by the way. She is, I don't know. I mean, Rachael, what do you do? What is it that you want people to know about you?
Well, first of all, I'm a heck of a good time. All right. So that, if that's all you get from this, you've walked away with my takeaway here.
Hot take.
I run a branding, web design, and marketing agency, and I'm also a biz comedian. I have a business comedy show called Awkward Marketing with snackable bits of business wisdom mixed in with sketch comedy, and so that's a blast. And I like long walks on the beach and pina coladas.
How did you get started in this? Like, tell me, like, how did it start? Like, where do you come from? How did it start for you?
Well, I was born on a June evening in Chesterfield, Missouri. And, starting my business was kind of a long and sordid story, but I'll give you the Cliff's Notes. I was in law school at the time, and I took a trip down to southern Mexico. I got an internship down there for the summer. And while I was in this internship, I realized, oh my gosh, I do not want to be a lawyer. This was not the life for me. But I have this background in theater. I ended up working with this indigenous women's theater troupe down in Chiapas, Mexico. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I want to use theater as a tool for social change. So long story short, I quit law school. I moved to Mexico. I started my business to fund this work I was doing with women, young women and girls. And I lived there for 8 years, and my business grew while I was doing it. And just a couple years ago, I moved back to the States. I found a husband while in Mexico, so I got married down there.
Really?
Yes, we came back up to right outside Chicago, and I'm running my business out of there. And
why would you do that to him? Why would you take him from Mexico to Chicago? He's like, what the hell is up with this wind?
And he immediately got to shoveling. Like, I think it was the day we arrived, he had to shovel a whole driveway full of snow. I know I'm a taskmaster.
He goes from never shoveling and never seeing snow to straight up 8 feet in Chicago.
Oh yes, indeed. Trial by fire. What can I say?
And I think you guys had like record lows this year. I think it was it was pretty cold.
We got like a bunch of snow, and it's the spring. We had a rough. But you know what? Spring has come. And we're all, and as soon as even like a hint of spring comes, everyone in Chicago is wearing like short shorts and flip flops. So that that's what we're rocking these days.
There's always flip-flops. Always, it's cold as I don't know what out there, and people are wearing shorts and flip-flops. Like it's 80 degrees out. It's freaking April.
When you suffer through the long and cruel winter, you know what? Even 40 degrees feels like the Caribbean, so we'll take it.
So talk more about like the acting and what you did in Mexico. Like, what was that like for you? Like, you were in law school doing an internship down there, and then like you did a little bit of theater, and then all of a sudden you're doing this on the side. Like tell me that right there. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So, I had studied my theater my whole life, and I actually got my undergraduate in theater. My parents were so proud of me. What can I say? But I kind of left that life behind. I wanted to make an impact. And so that's why I went to law school. But I ended up in this internship in southern Mexico, and I had never really been exposed to theater as a tool for community building and social change. And I saw these women using theater as a tool for community education. They were taking it all throughout the mountains and the highlands of Chiapas to these remote towns, to teach people about things like women's health or domestic violence. And, compared to the very dry and tedious work in the legal field, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really lighting people on fire. This is really making change in these areas. I was really attracted to it. So I started volunteering with this organization. And, what's funny about that is that my first summer there, I did just a whole mix of things. I translated their texts into English. But I also taught a beginner's web design course. Because way back when I was in high school, I got grounded for the summer and I taught myself to code. So I had these, coding skills. So I teach this intro to web design course. Little did I know that I'd be coming back in just a few months and starting a web design business. So yeah, I started working with these women, using theater as a tool for change. And one day I met a friend, and she was an English teacher out in the highlands of Chiapas in this indigenous town called Chalchuitan. And she said, hey, will you come out? They would love to meet you. They would love to practice with a native English speaker. Will you come out to my English class? And I was like, heck yeah, I'm totally down for it. So I go out, on the back of a truck out into the mountains, meeting these kids, and, they're asking me questions in English, and they find out I have this theater background, and the girls got really excited. And the girls were like, will you teach us theater? And little did they know I was looking for such an opportunity. So I ended up, starting this theater troupe, this high school theater troupe in this town. And I would go out, a couple times a week, and we would do theater practice. And because I had this connection with this women's group back in the city, I was able to take their plays that they had written in their indigenous languages, for the area versus, I'm not going to take Shakespeare out to these kids. That really has no application to their daily lives. So I was able to take a local playwright's play out there to the mountains, have these girls perform it. We did lots of different shows. They wrote their own stuff. We produced a telenovela for them that they wrote themselves. What? Yes, we did. It was called, it was amazing.
That is amazing. Like, what got you into comedy though?
So, wow, that's a leap, because I'll tell you what, the stuff we were dealing with in Mexico was not very funny, because it was serious stuff. But, I had done comedy a lot in, all of my years and leading up to school and in college and all that kind of stuff. But as I said, I left it behind. And when I got back to the States, I started a Facebook Live show for my business. It was, I would hop on Facebook Live every week and, do my little marketing tidbits and everything. And one week I thought, I'm going to do something totally crazy and totally different. I am going to do a Facebook Live musical. So I did. I performed Facebook Live, the musical. I think it was June 2017. And I just wrote a bunch of songs about marketing and went on there and performed them live. And that show got within a few days, 10,000 views. And so I'm like, oh, wow, I really have something here with this. This is really landing with people. And so I started to experiment with, using wigs and costumes and different characters. And that's how I decided to turn my Facebook Live show into a pre-produced show so I could, bring in sketch comedy. And it felt like, Trey, that I had, found an old lover on the street, and we had, being reunited with theater and with comedy and with performing, which I had been out of the game for a while. And I had done this theater work in Mexico, but I wasn't performing. I was helping these young kids perform. So, long story short, I'll say I wanted to produce and create content that didn't feel like content, that felt like entertainment. And that really is the goal of awkward marketing, is it's content that you enjoy consuming. There is a teachable in there, but it also is fun to watch people say, oh, I binge watch your show. And I feel like that's a win for a content marketer if people are consuming it readily and eagerly and they're excited for it. And I also, wanted to contribute something new to the conversation because plenty of people are talking about marketing, writing about marketing, pontificating about marketing. Sometimes with content, it's not about necessarily saying something different, but it's about how you say it. And so that's why I felt like comedy would be a really good fit. Mm-hmm. Marketing can feel really boring. It can feel really tiresome for people, awkward, awful. So I thought, let's have some fun with it. Let's have some laughs. And that's how that all came together.
That is awesome. But you're right. There's a lot of people out there, especially on Facebook. I feel like everybody, I go on Facebook now and I try to market the show. I don't want to be all fancy and do like a quick video or whatever, but I feel like everybody's doing that. I get on Facebook and there's just this barrage of people doing selfie, talks, quotes. It's like Tony Robbins, his original message is 5 times removed from Joe Schmo from wherever. He's just repeating his quote. I feel like the marketing aspect is totally murky right now. There's so many people in this space of self-growth and self-development, and they're all trying to do the same thing. I feel like they just read Gary Vaynerchuk's book and they're just all of a sudden, I gotta post 1,000 times on Instagram. Do you see a lot of that?
Marketer. And in a way, everyone is a marketer these days because everyone has a side hustle. My mom will get on and be like, I'm selling these vases. Everybody's got something to sell. And okay, on one hand, that's a good thing, right? Social media and the internet have really democratized the marketplace. Once upon a time, to start a business, you had to have, tons of money and you had to have really high level connections. And today that's not the case. Anyone can start their own business all across the world with the power of the internet. So that's really, in my opinion, a good thing. But then, okay, yeah, the downside is we've got tons of douchebag marketers out there, as you said, reiterating, some Tony Robbins wisdom as filtered through their brother's friend's uncle's blog, right? And that stuff is really tiresome. So I feel your pain.
Yeah, well, it's got to make your job harder too. That's your business, and you got everybody trying to get into it and break into it, and it's not easy for you. It seems easy because you're awesome at it, but just for me, I know with the podcast and stuff, I gotta contend with a shit ton of life coaches. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, I've met them all, and I met their brother, so I know what you're saying. Actually, Trey, I'll tell you what, it actually makes my job easier, and I'll tell you why, because number one, my show is Awkward Marketing, so I make fun of a lot of bad marketing practices on my show, so bring on the bad marketing. I consider it research. I observe it, I study it, I take screenshots of it, I put it in my file. But the other thing that I like to say, and this is one of the things I talk about a lot, is when you find yourself getting irritated about something online, and we all have it, right? You just rattled off a bunch of things that are, some of my biggest pet peeves. But I often like to say, when you find things that irritate you, that frustrate you, that get you mad, that make you want to go on a rant and get on your Facebook page and be like, I'm quitting Facebook forever. That's a little bell going off, a little ding, 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 signaling that you've just hit on one of your brand values. You've just hit on something that shows you, hey, here's something that tells me how I want to show up in the world for my people and how I don't want to show up in the world. And so I like to say that my best content comes from the things that piss me off because they signal to me, a teaching moment. They signal to me something that is important to me about how I want my brand to be in front of people. And so bad marketing, actually, I consider it, keep it going. Keep it going. And the bad marketing separates the wheat from the chaff, if you will. It helps those of us who are experts at what we do to shine, and the rest just, fades away.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
I'm going to say bro marketers. And I mean bro in a gender neutral way, because a woman and a man, they can both be bro marketers. And these are the marketers that are trying to sell you their like 7 secrets to 7-figure success in 7 minutes. Buy my course and tomorrow you'll be in the Hollywood Hills with, a Lamborghini and, a beautiful woman on your arm or a beautiful guy on your arm. So that's kind of my biggest pet peeve in the marketing space for sure.
Bro marketing. That's awesome. I've never heard of that. All right, so I'm looking at your channel right now. Like, which one of these characters gets the most hits?
It is a toss-up between Brad the Braggy Bro, suck my hustle, grind it all, hustle your balls off. That's Brad. And my mom. My mom is a fan favorite. Everyone loves my dear old lady. You know what I'm saying?
And is that actually like a play on your mom, or is that like a character that you made up?
It is indeed based on real life. I will say it's a caricature, but my mom, it's so funny. She watches the show. She does indeed love it. She loves it when I do her. And she will tell me, she's like, my friends come up to me and they say you nailed it. And I don't see it, Rach. I don't see it. But they say that you're a spitting image. So according to my mom's friends, I'm doing a real good job of being my mom. So it is based on real life.
That is awesome. I know I was doing a little research and looking at your website, and my favorite was your mom and then Donald Trump.
The man you love to hate. Yeah. The thing about Trump is he actually is an awkward marketer. Like, he truly is a marketer in everything he freaking does. So it wasn't too far from the truth when I was doing my play on Trump. So yeah, I couldn't help myself, Trey. I couldn't help myself. I had to go there.
Do you ever collaborate with anybody? Like, is it just a one woman show or what?
I mean, right now it is a one-woman show, and I do play all the different characters. So if you ever see that, you'll see me in different scenes where I've got 4 or 5 of me on the screen, and it's, it is me, and I got a lot of wigs. But I do have some projects coming up, some collaborations on the horizon, so keep your eyes peeled for those.
So do you do the editing and all that too, or do you just show up and, rock out?
Oh, yes, indeed. I am the producer, the editor, the director, the writer, the costume designer. I do it all. And, I am a big fan of delegation. I do advocate that my clients delegate. But when it comes to comedy and producing comedy and putting together comedy sketches, it's so hard to nail that unless you are a comedian. So I've kind of been pretty protective of, awkward marketing is my baby. And it takes a certain amount of timing to achieve different things. So I keep that under lock and key. That's my project. Yeah.
Well, how long does it take to like come up with like a short like clip? Like, how long does it take you? Do you have these ideas of these skits already in your head? I mean, what does that process look like?
So I will admit I batch these out. And so what that means is I'll be kind of collecting for a few months at a time ideas. I just have a little notebook. I'll see, for example, I'll see something online that pisses me off and I'll write it down. I'll be like, okay, that's an episode right there. So I'll kind of gather these episode ideas over several months. And then once I have enough and I'm kind of planning my next season, I will go and I kind of plan out all the sketches at one time. I'll buy all the costumes at one time. Then I film them in one big chunk. So I'll film all the characters over like 2 or 3 days and for like 12 to 16 episodes. And then I will film me because there's, some bits of me teaching about, within the show. And then each week, as each episode comes out, I'm editing the episodes before they come out. So I've got all this raw footage. In fact, I'm literally right before I came on the show and right after I come on the show, I'm going to be editing my most recent episode tonight because Wednesdays are the days that I go live. I really love cutting it down to the quick here. But yeah, so I do batch it out so that it's not, I couldn't possibly be recording each episode every single week. It's just too many logistics. And so I do it all in chunks. And that helps me be more efficient.
How much of these little sketches helped your business?
It's up-leveled my visibility in a huge way. I run this branding, web design, and marketing studio. But until I really started doing this show, I mean, I'd had some blog posts, a couple posts that got really popular and went semi-viral. But, until I started doing this show, no one really knew who I was. I was getting mostly referral business. And I wasn't out there sharing my thought leadership, if you will. I wasn't, I was kind of the woman behind the scenes, behind the computer, coding and designing all day. So this show has really kind of put me on the map and, help people to know who I am. And, I've expanded into speaking. So I do speaking engagements. I do bring some characters along. Typically it's Brad who takes the stage with me. But yeah, I mean, there's a few things that awkward marketing serves. Like, obviously, it helps to grow my audience and just build brand awareness. But awkward marketing also serves to kind of train and prepare my clients to work with me. Because when you watch the show, you really get an inside peek at my perspective and how I approach marketing and design and branding. So by the time my clients come to me, most of them have seen a couple episodes at least. So they understand my perspective. They understand how I approach the work. And so they're kind of already primed to work with me. So the show serves that purpose as well in terms of, and it also serves to educate people about, all of the things I do, because for a really long time, I was known as just the web designer, right? Like, oh, she's just a designer. And marketing is such a big part of my process and strategy, how I approach design and branding. So awkward marketing has helped people to understand, like my colleagues and other people in my industry, oh, Rachel's the person you send a client to if they don't just need, a logo and a website, but they need a holistic approach to their overarching marketing strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does. So like let's say somebody needs some quick advice on some marketing, like some marketing help. Like what's the basic 101? Like what area should they be focusing on? Like if they don't have a budget for marketing, right? And they're trying to break out in, let's say, podcast. Let's say they're trying to break their podcast out. Like what is some basics that they need to know about marketing?
Oh man, you just asked me the big heavy question, right? You phrased it like it was a bite-sized one, but
Well, I'm taking notes here.
Okay, good. Yeah. Say somebody has a podcast that with a really cool graphic with a guy in a plaid, a flannel shirt and a suit. I'm kidding. So first of all, I love that you said podcast here, because one of the keys of what I'm teaching my clients really is content marketing. So it really is all about being consistent with creating content, and adding something new to the conversation. And just like I said before, sometimes it's adding a new insight, and sometimes it's the way you are saying it and framing it. Because online marketing is not an overnight game. So when it comes to things like SEO and getting found on Google, well, Google ranks you partially based on how long you've been around and how often you produce new content, because that's how they, in part, measure your relevance, right? And if if you haven't updated your site in 5 years, they're probably not going to want to send people to you unless there are other factors in play. So consistency is really key. The other thing that I would say is, oh my gosh, and people ask me a lot, what advice would you give your younger self if you could go back in time? And they expect me to say something profound. And what I actually say is start an email list like yesterday. If I could tell my younger self to do anything, it would be start building your list, because almost anything you want to sell, anything you want to promote, email marketing still remains one of the most effective ways to sell things. And people they often are shocked by this, because they're like, I hate email, get out of my inbox. But the reality is that just like with your website, email is one of those things that you quote unquote own, as opposed to social media, where the algorithm is always changing. And at the end of the day, Mark Zuckerberg owns Facebook. So if he wants to change how it works, he does and will. So you can't put all your eggs in that basket. But email is a little bit more solid and stable. Same thing with having your own website. So, those are kind of the things that I like to say. If you watch my show, you'll get one of the underlying messages that I'm always returning to again and again is that online marketing, your website, it's not a boomerang, meaning you don't just throw it out there and money doesn't just come right back and hit you in the face. And I think that this is one of the reasons I get really pissed off about those kind of 7 figures in 7 minutes marketers, because they're selling this dream that if you just do this one thing, if you just follow this one formula, you're going to be wildly successful. But it really is about longevity. It really is about playing the long game. It really is about kind of having that endurance and having your eye on the prize and being able to chip away day after day after day So that's why I say consistency, and that's why I say your email list.
Mm. Well, all right, so you say email list. Like, how do you build that? Like, what's the easy way? Or let's say, I don't know, like, let's say I'm a regular guy, a regular bro, and I want to build my email list. I don't know how to do that. Like, how can I do that?
Well, what most people do these days is they have some sort of a lead magnet, right? They have some sort of a freebie they're giving away. But I'm going to tell you my insight on this, which is that when it comes to giving something away for free, I like to disabuse my clients of looking at it like this, because when you're getting somebody on your email list, I like to think about that as making your first sale. Because essentially, let's just say you have a PDF that you're giving, like, here are the 10 tips to building a podcast, for example, or whatever it might be. And somebody says, okay, I'm going to give you my name and email address in exchange for this PDF download that's going to give me some value. They are giving you something of value, aka their email, because that's something that people really prize. They don't want you cluttering up their inbox in exchange for what they perceive to be valuable to them. So this is not a free offer. This is a paid offer. They have just paid you with their email. And so I really like to train my clients to, make the most of that first impression. So when I first download that ebook from you, I need to have an amazing thank you page. I need to follow up with an incredible email. So many people miss the boat on this. They'll be like, okay, thank you for signing up. Stay tuned for my newsletter. There's no worse words to read in your inbox than, stay tuned for tips and tricks in my newsletter. Nobody cares. Nobody wants your newsletter, right? So, you want to have you want to train people to expect awesomeness every time they see your name in their inbox. So that first interaction that they have with you needs to be amazing. Like, you need to deliver right away. And going back to that lead magnet, what are you giving for free, or what are you giving as your first sale, if you will, in exchange for somebody's name and email address? I like to recommend that people keep it bite-sized. There are so many long 50 to 100 page ebooks, or 4-part video series, or hour-long MP3s that you can download to your phone, or whatever it might be. People aren't consuming that, right? They might look at it for a second, and then it goes into their desktop, or it goes onto their phone, never to be seen again. So you want to give somebody something that they will get value out of. I could skim it in 5 minutes and immediately get value and apply it to my life, so that I have that sense memory of, oh, wow, I just signed up for Trey's thing. I read over it for 2 minutes, and I already had this amazing impact. I am going to open the next email he sends me.
What's the worst free gift that you've seen?
Your newsletter. People often are just sign up for updates, stay in the know. Stay in the know about what? Most of the time, you just haven't earned it yet, right? Yeah, if you're Oprah, for example, you've already earned it. We already trust you. America loves you. We're going to get on your list, because we want to get updates. But most of us, if you're just your average Joe, your average bro, you haven't earned my trust yet. So no, I don't want your updates. The only reason I'm signing up for your updates is me, RKA, Rachel, going to sign up for your updates so I can later make fun of you on this show. You know what I'm saying?
Do you create the PDFs for them, or do you kind of encourage them to do that themselves?
We highly encourage our clients to take advantage of the copywriters that we have on our team. Anytime we have copywriters on a project, websites convert better, people have better user experiences. And even for our clients who are self-professed writers, or who have written books, or are good at prose, or whatever it might be, writing, whether it be web copy or sales copy or even a PDF, is a special type of writing. It takes a special kind of approach. So I do highly recommend that people bring in copywriters, not necessarily to create the content. The genius still has to come from you, but in terms of, laying it out the right way, in terms of turning it into quick, punchy, actionable, little bite-sized chunks. Yeah, we bring in copywriters all the time. I myself am not a copywriter, although I do write my own copy. But, I don't write copy for clients, but yes, we absolutely help people write that stuff. You can do it yourself, abso-freaking-lutely. And so I don't want to dissuade somebody that's got a low budget, like, oh, it's not worth doing. Like, it totally is. But it is one of those things that I think is really worth investing in. And even as a web designer, if somebody's saying, should I invest in my website or should I invest in a copywriter? I will tell them a copywriter every single time, because you can have a really clean, minimalist website. But if your messaging sucks, you've lost people before you've even begun.
I'm checking my website now to make sure I take that newsletter off. All right, good. We're good. I took it off. 10 ways to increase your downloads. There you go. That's my new one. And my new offer.
You're fast.
Yes,
wow.
Yes. That's what happens. I mean, when you get, I am I learned everything myself. So I watched YouTube, learned how to build a website. And I mean, it still sucks, but hey, I'm a blue collar guy. So don't expect too much.
There's no shame in that. In fact, I really encourage people when they're first getting started with that type of stuff, building your website, doing your email marketing, your social media, you should be doing that yourself. The copywriting is one thing I do recommend delegating, but all that kind of stuff, not only, I like to say you should delegate only the things that either, number one, you yourself have mastered, or you can pay someone else to master for you. But what a lot of people do is they're just getting started. They have a really tiny budget. So they hire like the bargain basement, like social media manager, for example. And they're just putting up pictures of, quotes from Tony Robbins and Gary Vee on top of pictures of sunsets, instead of doing anything meaningful for your brand and your business. So those core marketing activities, you should do them yourself in the early days until you get a healthy enough revenue that you can afford to pay someone great to do for you. And you're the best person to do your own marketing. Really, truly, you are. And then when you start figuring out what lands, what resonates with people, what people are drawn to, what they're not drawn to, then you can bring in a pro and say, all right, here's my core audience. Here are my core messaging points. Here's my brand voice. Here's all of these things. Now you can do this for me. So you're doing it the right way.
But I mean, people really think that their copy is like phenomenal, right? Like the Tony Robbins quote, "Over the beach sunset," people love that crap, right? They think that they post it on Instagram, they get like 5 likes, no traffic. I mean, but they still love it. I mean, how do you wake them up out of that? How do you say, hey, look, you need to outsource your copy because it sucks?
Well, I'll tell you what. My show Awkward Marketing, part of the reason I started it was to walk my talk for my clients, was to show them what it looks like to create creative, innovative content that makes people stop their scroll and actually want to pay attention to you. So that's one way I do it, right? My clients watch the show and then they're like, okay, I know I need to do something different. I know I need to grab people's attention. And then we get the conversation started about that. And for a lot of people, there's nothing I can say to wake them up. Like the ones that are really in love with their Gary Vee quotes on a sunset, they're going to have to learn the hard way through lack of conversions, through lack of sales. Like they get to a point where, and we all of us learn this way, right? We all, learn lessons through pain most of the time, right? So they put that stuff up, they try it out, and to some degree, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. See what works, see what lands. The thing about those quotes is they often get a lot of likes because people love to like see an inspirational quote and just double tap. But they don't often convert. And worse than that, it's not even about conversions because that's not always the goal of social media. It's not always about like, I post something and then somebody buys, or I post something and somebody turns into my email subscriber or whatever. But the worst thing about that kind of generic marketing content is it's forgettable. You look like, how many Instagram accounts are there full of inspirational quotes? I mean, you don't know who you're double tapping on. Versus creating your own unique content, having a really, unique brand look, having a unique brand voice. That's the stuff that gets you remembered. So, when that Instagram follower of yours is talking to their friend and they say, oh yeah, you know what? I need a web designer, or I need a coach, or I need a this or that. They're going to be like, oh, you know who you should talk to? Blank, because they, you're thinking about them all the time. You're seeing them, you're paying attention to them. But the generic content, it's like, who posted that? I don't know.
Well, it seems like, I don't know. You know what I hate? I hate like the generic like messages that you get. Like you go on LinkedIn and you connect with someone and you get this rando like message, like an automatic response, like, hey, I just connect. Thanks for connecting. Blah blah blah. And you're like, at first it got me. It was like, oh hey, nice to meet you. Yeah, thanks for connecting. And then they're like email. Then they message me back and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you just sent me a message, dude. Like, I don't know. You have this automated or what? Like, you sit there and you send me a message. Like, I feel like a lot of these messages are like impersonal and like automatic, right? Like, is that something that is accurate? Like, I mean, are people doing that?
Well, I think we both know the answer to that because we've both been on the receiving end. But what I would say and how I'd reframe this for you, Trey, is you've just hit on something that you can do differently than other people. So certainly it's not sustainable for any of us to go and send custom messages to every single person who follows us on social media, but certainly a certain degree of personalization goes such a long way. One of my favorite marketers is Amy Porterfield. I don't know if you're familiar with her podcast, Online Marketing Made Easy. Do you listen to that?
I do not.
Well, now you will, because it's freaking awesome. Okay. But here's the thing about Amy is, she's got a team. She's, one of the big marketers out there. She's selling millions of dollars worth of courses every year, but she is in her Instagram and she does personally respond. Like if you say something to her on her story or you send her a little comment, does she do it for every single comment? No, but she does take time to respond. When she's doing launches, she will go in there in the trenches and answer clients' questions personally. And I really think that is such a secret to so many people's success. I mean, she talks all the time about how Jasmine Star was launching her course a couple years ago, and it was a little bit of a rough launch. The people were not buying. So Jasmine got in there and she answered every single question personally that her prospective buyers were asking her. And I mean, she could say that she's too big for that. She could set up a bot. She could have her team do that. But the reason her launch was such a success at the end of the day was because she had that personal touch. So I think that the businesses who do that are the ones that excel. And the bots, 9 times out of 10, I mean, if nothing else, I actually kind of think that that's a signal that somebody's not doing very well. If I get a bot message from you, I know you're not that good at what you do. That's kind of how I interpret it.
I hate those damn things. So impersonal. So what would you say to your 25-year-old self? No, I'm just kidding. But seriously though, like what is why are you doing this? Like what is behind this? Like the shows are great, the characters are great. Like what is your why? Like at the end of the day, why are you doing this?
Well, Trey, because I want to make a lot of money. That's so funny that you asked me that question because this is another one of my pet peeves when people will answer that. Now, certainly there are lots of businesses out there that have this greater mission that are really trying to impact the planet. And so if I'm Tom's shoes, like obviously my why is I want to make money on one hand, and I also want to help children all over the world have shoes on their feet, right? But you always hear these questions, especially like with these, business podcasts, and people are like, you know what? I just want to make the world a better place. And that is bullshit most of the time when people say that. Now, I'm kind of kidding when I say that my only why is to make money, but it's a big why. I'm the sole breadwinner in my family. My husband is a stay-at-home dad. I am the earner for us, right? And so I got to tell you, what gets me up in the morning is that the need to pay the frickin' bills, right? The need to put braces on my kid one day. She's only 1 now, but she'll probably need braces. I have horrible teeth, right? So that is a big why. But the secondary thing I would say, Trey, is that, going back to these things that we talk about, the things that we hate in the marketing world, marketing and sales can be so predatory. And there are so many people out there taking advantage and giving business in general a bad name. And there's lots of people who have been taken advantage of, people who just feel crappy and people who my clients have amazing businesses and they are changing the world. They truly are. And yet they often are getting broken down by how gruesome and difficult and slimy and uncomfortable it is to market themselves. And so awkward marketing is this little shining light in the middle of that saying it doesn't have to be awful. Yes, let's all laugh at it. And here are some ways that you can market your business that don't make you feel crappy about yourself, that don't make you feel like you're taking advantage of people, that aren't manipulative, that aren't sleazy. So, I mean, if I'm getting real about it, that really is my why in terms of why I do the show. But at the end of the day, you know, Trey, I got to put food on the table. And that is, you know, the thing that makes me get up in the morning and go to work instead of grabbing a beer, you know?
I just feel like where we're headed to now is like a more of a, we're trying to find purpose in our lives. And I think you found it. I think you're on top of that. I think that this makes you happy. You're funny as shit. Your videos are great, and you're mixing what you're good at, marketing, with your love of comedy. And like, I'm jealous, kind of. Like, I wish I could. I mean, you're witty. I mean, some of these videos here, like, what is it? 1-800-CLICK-ON-ME. Like, that's phenomenal.
Well, I get that a lot, Trey. Most people are jealous, and, you know, it's hard to be me, but somebody's got to do it. I'm kidding. But, you know, to your point about this older generation, I'm also an elder millennial. I'm right behind you. I was born in 1984. And I totally agree with you that, you know, the older generation often has a very prescriptive idea of what work has to look like. But that's because that's how work did have to look like for them growing up, right? There was no internet economy. And that's going back to what I was saying before about how fortunate we are to be living in this time. I mean, when I moved down to Mexico, it was really the beginning of the digital nomad kind of culture or movement, right? And I just felt so fortunate. I mean, if I had been born 20 years earlier, there's no freaking way that I could have gone and lived in Mexico for 8 years and worked with young women and girls while growing a business. And it was the internet that made it possible. So now we have all of these opportunities for finding work-life balance and, as you say, living purposeful lives. And so that's really exciting. It's funny. I get my best work done I do have a beautiful office, and I also have an office outside of the home, but my best work, my most productive work happens on the couch with my feet up, typically with Netflix in the background. I'm not going to lie about it. That is the truth. And it's, you know, I do a lot of work in my office. I do a lot of work, you know, I've got an office outside the house, but that's where the magic happens, is on the couch. But to your point, I do have an expensive lifestyle. I do have about 5 Lambos in the driveway that I've got to keep up. You know, I'm going to pass them on to my daughter one day. She's got to have those Lambos too. It's the dream right there. And I did it with my 7 secrets to 7-figure success in 7 minutes by now.
Well, what made you come back again? I mean, I don't understand why you left that tropical lifestyle down there.
Neither do I. I ask myself that question every day. No, you know what? I will say this. Building a business it overseas is challenging. You've got internet issues to deal with. There's different culture, you know, different things. And I'll tell you what, people ask me a lot, like, what do you like best about coming back to the States? And they think I'm going to say like my mom or, you know, being closer to family. And what I love to say is, number 1, the internet speed. Number 2, Amazon Prime. I could not do my business, my show, without Amazon Prime. So, you know, at the end of the day, it was family was a big draw for me to come back. But also, you know, I'm doing a lot more speaking events. I'm doing a lot more, you know, live teaching and that kind of thing. And so to come back and forth and have to, you know, have a flight with 3 or 4 connections and stay overnight in the Mexico City airport every time I wanted to come up for an event, that was just not sustainable. So it made sense to come up to start our family and to be closer to my, you know, my mom and dad, my good old mom. And, but because my husband is from Chiapas, it'll always be a part of our lives. We're always going to be going back and forth between Mexico. So, and because I've got this, you know, business that is internet based, I can take the biz with me. We just went in January to visit his family, and I brought the business along with me. So, yeah.
How long did you stay down there?
We were there for like two-ish weeks. So not a super long stay, but, you know, a lot of Europeans and people in Australia and just all over the world tend to take the longer trips. And Americans are very much like, we're going to get in and out in 5 days or less, you know, like 5 days, 4 nights. Like, I'm going to vacation hard and I'm going to get home and I'm going to work, you know. So I feel like personally 2 weeks isn't even like nearly enough, but it was great. And I did work the whole time though. And as soon as I got there and I plugged into the quote unquote high speed internet in my Airbnb and it took me an hour to upload somebody to Dropbox, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not, I can't do this anymore.
It's like the old AOL.
It really is.
You had a dial up. You're like, where the hell is that coming from?
Exactly.
So you're stepping into the keynote speaker realm. Do you find like people like can you separate, right? So you make your videos like are your keynotes like comedy based too, or are they a little bit more serious?
They are indeed comedy based because have you ever been to like a business conference? I mean, come on. We need a little bit of humor in here. Now, it's not sometimes I do bring in characters. So Brad will open the show and then I'll turn into me. I'll kind of Scooby-Doo myself into RKA and the message is still content based. It's not all like it's not just stand-up comedy, right? There still is a lesson. There still is a teachable. There still is something you can take away with you and apply in your business. And I don't always do characters. Like, yeah, I do workshops on copywriting. I do workshops on content. I do workshops on blogging and on web design. And so there is definitely practical takeaways. But I mean, if you've ever been at a conference at like 2 p.m. right after lunch, when you would rather be in your hotel room snoozing, that's where you got to bring in RKA to wake you up and have some laughs. I mean, why not laugh and learn at the same time?
Absolutely. I think that's awesome. Yeah, because that shit's boring. Like, I mean, you get in there at 2 o'clock at a Holiday Inn down in the lobby, or not lobby, but in one of those spaces that they rent out. I mean, you're sleeping. You're nodding. I mean, you need to get RKA in there to lighten the mood with her impressions of her mom and Donald Trump. That shit is hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know how Trump would go over. I've never brought him to a conference. I
What?
might get booed off the stage, but you never know. You never know when he might appear.
Have you ever done stand up at all?
I actually, yes, I have. It's is in my bag of tricks. In fact, I'm doing a stand-up show a little later this week.
Are you really?
I am indeed.
And how do you prepare? What's the difference? Like, how do you prepare for that?
Well, the difference is with my show, it's all marketing and business related, right? So even my Trump character goes back to like the world of funnels and that kind of thing. With stand-up comedy, you're speaking to a broader audience, so I can take observations and stories and anecdotes from just regular life and make them so that anybody could enjoy them. So that's a different. Also, I can swear a lot more. I can tell dick jokes, that kind of thing. I can't do that on my show, So
Who do you test your jokes on? Like, is it the stand up? Is that when you start testing your material?
that is the best audience to test your jokes. Yeah, you can't test your jokes on people who know you because either they won't find it funny at all, or they'll think it's too funny. So it's really that cold audience that's the best barometer for the jokes. And sometimes you bomb, and sometimes you don't, and that's really a good lesson for all of us, whether it's stand up or it's business, is you can't figure out what works for your business. A lot of my clients spend too much time incubating on their ideas. They take too much time perfecting it for this theoretical audience that's going to receive their content, that's going to receive their products and services. And they, wait and wait and wait and wait. And then they put it out there and it bombs. And it's like, if you had only put this out here earlier and not spent so much time and money on it, you would have gotten that information at much less cost. And then you could have refined it and made it better. And so I think, that is the same thing in stand-up. You got to get out there. You got to do open mics. You got to put your, stuff out into the world, see what lands, see what doesn't. The stuff that bombs, it's okay. Everyone's bombed. All the greats have bombed. You'll bomb too. And that's how you get to the good stuff.
You still get, like, do you get nervous at all when you go up and you stand on stage?
I never was nervous when I did theater. Like, before a play, everyone would be like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. And I was like, bring it on. I'm ready. But now that I do like keynote speaking, I always get nervous before that because it's a different thing. You're not just performing in that case. You're also, you have to bring the content. You have to give people takeaways. You have to give people a big impact. So I definitely I get nervous before, but now I have a new nervousness bringing this type of performance and, showmanship to business events.
So how can people connect with you?
Well, I am RKAINK, RKA Inc. on all social media platforms. You can go to rkaink.com or just go to awkwardmarketing.com and you'll find my show.
Rachael, I want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for making the time. This has been a fun interview for me, and what you're doing is unique. Like, it is definitely pushing through like the noise that's on the internet, and you're getting noticed. And I really do appreciate what you're doing. I love comedy, and I think your material isn't like kind of like, dumb or whatever. It's legit, and it's really funny.
Well, I'm truly flattered, Trey. This is probably the best day of my life.
I want to say thank you to Rachael for joining the show. This was a great conversation, and please leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast from, and hit that little button that says subscribe. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can do that at tdowns80 and on Twitter at downstrey. If you want to subscribe to my email list, you can do that at the website at yoursuperiorself.com or text the word superior to 444-999. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll talk to you later.